In the aftermath of Donald Trump's indictment, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson joined other Republican officials on the media damage control tour, criticizing President Biden for not issuing a pardon to Donald Trump instead of criticizing the behavior from Trump, which apparently merited a pardon in the first place. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. So Republicans have scattered to the winds in terms of the media. They are out in force in the aftermath of the Donald Trump indictment, in which Trump was indicted for 38 charges of federal crime. He's going to be arraigned tomorrow in Miami. And again, Republicans are on damage control, given that Trump is still their cult leader, still overwhelmingly popular with the Republican base, and still their likely nominee in the 2024 election to run against President Biden. Ron Johnson is a Republican senator of Wisconsin. He joined those Republicans out in force, and he made an appearance on the Fox Propaganda Network with Maria Bartiromo, who in the aftermath of, or in the absence of Tucker Carlson, is one of the more prominent and more deranged Trump cultists herself. So I want to play this clip because Ron Johnson makes kind of a bizarre case, which I suppose is any case that a Republican could make at this point would be bizarre in terms of either defending or deflecting from Trump's behavior. So we're going to play it. It's about a minute long, and then we will unpack it together.
Well, I think certainly almost about half of America believes that. But again, the complicit, compliant, corrupt media, they're not covering this thing honestly. And, Maria, I also have to point out, you talked about precedent breaking. President Ford decided it was best for America not to pursue prosecution against President Nixon. President Trump pretty much made the same decision, decided not to pursue any kind of prosecution of Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden could have made the exact same decision, but he didn't. He allowed a SWAT raid on a very secure residence of President Trump over federal records, even though he was holding classified records himself. So that record issue should have been handled civilly. We never should be even in this place. But these are decisions that President Biden made. As much as he's probably lying about not talking to the Justice Department at all, that's pretty hard to believe when you understand how many other lies President Biden has told the American public.
So there's so much to unpack. So much to unpack. I guess going in reverse order. I have no doubt that Joe Biden has lied before in his lifetime. He's been fact-checked before. He's, been caught making the same sort of old man, wandering hyperbolic stories. Back in my day, I had to walk through, a mile of snow to get to, again, things that you typically expect from people spinning a yarn. But Ron Johnson's cult leader, the guy that Ron Johnson is backing for president, is Donald Trump, who told like 30,000 documented lies in the 4 years that he was president of the United States. In terms of who is the bigger, more prolific, and more egregious liar, Donald Trump is far worse by every metric on every level than Joe Biden in terms of matters of substance and even in terms of stuff that doesn't matter, like the size of the crowd of his inauguration. That was one of the biggest, most high-profile lies that Donald Trump demanded that his administration tell to the media, who had pictures to compare Trump's inauguration crowd with President Obama's inauguration crowd. But that was something that he made the press secretary officially say again and again and again, Sean Spicer, in front of the American people about just comparing crowd size. Something stupid which doesn't matter at all, but he's so thin-skinned and narcissistic and fragile that he had to die on the hill, metaphorically speaking, of that particular lie. And then, of course, all the substantive lies that he's told over the years about quid pro quos and Ukraine and, election denialism and stolen elections and voter fraud, things that actually matter and impact the civil society. So Ron Johnson has no ground to stand on. To whatever extent Joe Biden is a liar, Donald Trump is objectively worse by every metric. Therefore, Donald Trump deserves more criticism. Then you have the fact that the claim that President Biden is probably lying, that when he says that he didn't interfere or influence Attorney General Merrick Garland's decision or Special Counsel Jack Smith's decision to A, investigate Trump, and then B, Jack Smith's decision to indict him. We have no evidence to contradict President Biden there. None. So if Ron Johnson is making the assertion that President Biden is lying, he should provide proof for his claims. And of course, like every other Republican making a claim ever, he will never provide proof for it because Republicans are not good at proving claims. Then you get to the big chunk of it, which is the idea that President Biden broke precedent by allowing the indictment of a former president on his watch because President Ford didn't do it with President Nixon. And we'll get to the Trump and Hillary example in a minute because that one's laughable, but a couple of things. President Nixon, also a Republican, also legendarily corrupt. It's interesting how the most corrupt presidents in modern U.S. history seem to be overwhelmingly Republican. Trump, Nixon, Reagan in some respects, George W. Bush in some respects, but certainly Nixon and Trump. Nixon resigned. That's a huge one. Nixon was shamed successfully into resigning. That's one difference between he and Trump. Another difference between he and Trump is the fact that Nixon's party at the time, Republicans, led by Barry Goldwater, helped force and push Nixon to resign. They went and said, listen, you're going to be impeached, and if you don't resign, there will be enough bipartisan support to convict you of the impeachment, so you're going to be removed from office one way or another. So they pushed him into doing the right thing and resigning. Okay, so that's the second difference. The third difference is that President Nixon never attempted to run for office again. He wisely resigned in disgrace and never went near the levers of power, formal political power, ever again, which is what Donald Trump should have done. So those are some crucial differences there. The other thing that Ron Johnson said was to suggest that Donald, lock her up, the three words that he repeated over and over again, perhaps more than any combination of three words he's ever said to anybody ever, including I love you, to his children. Lock her up, that Donald Trump wisely, beneficently made the decision for the sake of national unity to not pursue litigation or indictment against Hillary Clinton. We have no evidence of that. We have no evidence that Donald Trump got into office and said, guys, you know what, listen, I know I campaigned on lock her up. I know I said that Hillary Clinton was profoundly corrupt and a threat to the republic and all these things and that she should go to jail. But honestly, I just don't. It's so divisive. I don't think that would serve the country at all. So I'm just telling you to let it go. We have no evidence that happened, and it would also contradict his behavior on the campaign trail. If it was divisive, if it would have been divisive, prosecuting Hillary Clinton when he was president, wasn't it divisive when he was on the campaign trail, basically saying the same thing? If anything, it was divisive and then dishonest if he said one thing during the campaign trail, which was divisive, and then intended to do something different when he became president. We have no evidence that he made the call that Gerald Ford made with the sake of President Nixon. So I'll also point out that it wasn't President Biden who made the choice to indict Donald Trump. That was a grand jury of Floridians in Trump territory, Florida. They made the decision after seeing the evidence given by Special Counsel Jack Smith. They made the decision, hey, Special Counsel Jack Smith, you should probably indict Donald Trump. You should probably bring charges against him. That was their decision. That wasn't President Biden's decision. It wasn't Attorney General Garland's decision. Once again, the party of personal accountability, the party that relentlessly pursues Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton for political reasons, the party of lock her up, is now saying, listen, locking political opponents up, that's really divisive. That's really divisive. We shouldn't do that. No, what they want is a blank check to threaten to lock up their political opponents and the opportunity to do so if they damn well please, but they don't want Democrats to pursue law and order if it means that the people they like get locked up. Again, it's an act of profound hypocrisy from a uniquely hypocritical party. Ron Johnson and Marietta Bartiromo should be mocked here, and as should anybody else who endorses this logic. And you're going to hear more of this in the next couple of weeks, next coming months, because this is part and parcel of the Republican Party's position on law and order. Democrats should be locked up. Republicans should be given a blank check. It's disgraceful.